This is an interview with Mr. James Roberson for the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute's Oral History Project. I'm Dr. Horace Huntley with the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, downtown Birmingham. Today is June 25th, 1996. Good morning, Mr. Roberson.
Good morning, Dr. Huntley. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
It's a pleasure having you here with me this morning.
I'm looking forward.
Yeah, I just want to start by asking you some general questions about your family, your background.
Okay.
Were your mother and father from Alabama?
My mom's from Alabama. My dad's from Georgia.
Oh, okay.
He moved over at an early age, somewhere between 6 and 7, to Alabama, and was here.
Did he move to Birmingham?
I moved to Birmingham.
Okay, your mother born in Birmingham?
Now, my mom was born in Clanton, Alabama, which is approximately 60 miles south of Fort Montgomery. And she had older brothers and sisters, and she came to Birmingham to finish her high school education at a school that's no longer in existence now, St. Mark's Episcopal School, I think that was the name of it, on the south side. The YMCA used to be there years ago, and she graduated from there, met my dad. He was here, he went to elementary school and high school in Birmingham.
Did he go to Parker?
Industrial at that time.
Industrial,
Yeah, he always said industrial, yeah.
Yeah.
He went to, uniquely, I finished the same elementary school and the same high school as my dad. And my brothers and sisters did not go to Parker. They had built Carver High, and so they
How many brothers and sisters?
had one brother and one sister.
And are they younger or older?
I'm the oldest of the three, and Mason and we're about 3 years apart. So I have a brother that's 3 years younger and a sister that's 6 years younger.
Oh, okay.
And they went to Carver High School.
What kind of work did your father do?
My father was railroad, Louisville and Nashville, and had a lot of fun memories of riding on the train, on passes. If you work on the railroad, you get passes. So Dad would take us on a trip to St. Louis, or a trip to Cincinnati, a trip to Chicago, and we felt like we were very important people because we had passes, and we never slept in the back of the train though. We always moved the chairs around and slept in the seats, and then got off and stayed a day in Chicago and went to a ball game or something like that and got back on. So he was with L&N Railroad for years, and then the railroad cut back. He went to Birmingham Tank for a while and then retired from the railroad.
What kind of work did you do on the railroad?
He worked in the roundhouse. The roundhouse was where they would bring the engines in, as a unique concept. Most of the young people have never seen it. They would bring the engines in and have a roundhouse that had different tracks, and then they would send it out to a different area to work on it. And that was in Boyle, Alabama, right near Terrence City. And as a little boy, I used to go over there and see them work on the train. It's amazing. I hadn't thought about these things about for years, but he worked in the roundhouse at L&N.
Did you ever have any aspirations to work on the train?
No.
No.
Work was a little too hard. Work was a little too hard for me. Basically, the blacks at that time was not in engineering position. They were not in supervisory position. They were basically skilled labor, and they did the firing of the engines, the coal work, and they used to come back home tired and dirty. And my aspiration was to do better. He had always, and I tried to do the same thing with my son and my kid. He had always inspired us to do one step better than what he had been. My grandfather was a laborer, and he was, but he had done better. And he inspired us to do better, and I'm trying to inspire my sons to do better.
Every generation,
every generation a little bit better, and that was basically his teaching and his philosophy. He did not really want me to go. His thing was that if you get an education, white people can't take it from you, and it can make doors open that never opened before. So he instilled early in my life that you're going to go to college, and you're going to be the first graduate. You're going to set a pace for your other brothers and sisters. So looking back, he made sure that I did everything right so that the other kids would have the opportunity to say, this is what your big brother did. So consequently, because of that type of leadership and that type of fathering, all three of us have undergrad and graduate degrees from a family that were no degrees. And so all of us hold at least a master's degree from different universities because he wanted us to be better than what he wanted.
So in effect, he showed you what he was doing so that you wouldn't want to.
Exactly. Yeah. He was a tough taskmaster. My mom did not like some of the things he made us do. We had jobs to do every day. Working cars, working. He made us work to see that if that's the lifestyle we wanted, this would be it. If you want better, you have to. And to him, education was the key. Today, I'm pushing my son. Education is very important, but I'm also pushing the fact that a business knowledge, becoming producers instead of consumers, is the thing that I'm pushing with my generation, my offspring, because education is fine, but until blacks and other minorities become grossly involved in producing, we will never lift ourselves up. So I'm in some things now, hoping that I can leave something for my kids that would make them.
So your father set a tone for you.
Absolutely.
To, in fact, pass that on.
Absolutely.
And further that tone for your children.
Absolutely.
What about your mother? Did she work outside the home?
My mom, for years, did not work out. My dad was kind of headstrong from the old school. I'm not from the old school, but for years my mom did not work at all. She was there to provide and be there when we got there and have his meal prepared when he walked in. And then she was a dentist hygiene for a while, and then she stopped there and she became a lunchroom manager in the Birmingham public school system, and she ended up retiring from that. So as we got older, she did go outside of the house. My father was a very strict disciplinarian when it comes to spending money. So I'm called a Jew sometimes myself because I was taught that every dime has a value and every penny will make a dime. Every dime makes a dollar, and it's how you distribute that and how you obligate yourself. So he would give her a strict budget. I never forget some of the greatest arguments we had in our house was on Saturday afternoon when Mom had gone to the grocery store. She had a $20 a week allotment for food, and when she went $22 over, oh man, he would have. So it made, I didn't particularly appreciate his dogmatic way of expressing himself, but it taught me the value of money and talking about it. But she did work outside the house and her latter years of being a young mother, and then retired from Birmingham school system.
What community were you raised up in?
Well, Collegeville, going back to the 40s and 50s, and I've been in Birmingham all my life, going back to the 40s and the 50s, Birmingham was basically racially divided according to size of town. And basically, except for a few spot communities, most black folks lived on the north side. That included Pacific Cove, North Birmingham, Collegeville, East Birmingham, Hudson City, Ellendale City, Cat Mountain, and areas like that. And the whites predominantly lived in West End and over the mountain, a few lived in Avondale, a few lived in Woodlawn. So the cluster of the black community was on the north side of town, and I grew up and didn't know I was poor. Did not realize that there were a lot of things different on the other side of the town, And the only time blacks went over the mountain per se was domestic work and a yard work. And so Collegeville was a lower middle class, a lower upper. It was working people.
What kind of professions did people have that lived in college?
Most of them were domestic workers, railroad workers, worked for U.S. Pipe, worked for U.S. Steel, had a smattering of educators who lived in the community. And at that time, it was tradition that a lot of the teachers who taught lived in the community. And but then they social status would be your minister, and after your minister, maybe your undertakers, and after your undertakers, possibly your school teachers, and then everybody else dropped down.
But all of them lived in the same community?
In the same community, absolutely.
How then did that affect the way that your community actually evolved when you had a mixture of professions?
Well, when you had a mixture of professions, the leadership of the community steered toward those who were professional. And I'll never forget T.J. Sellers. Mr. Sellers was principal of Hudson Elementary for years. I never know why they did not name the school after him. But he set the standard social. He made trips to the Kentucky Derby, come back and tell us about the Kentucky Derby. So you had an inter-circle of leadership based on their education, and everybody was accepted, but if that final word had to be said, it would be that person who had the leadership based on education, because schooling was such an important thing that he graduated from college, so therefore he knows more, so we'll listen to his wisdom over, and sometimes that was not necessarily correct, but within the black community, you had professionals who were unselfish in their role as leaders, and they looked out for the betterment of the community. We were basically like an isolated society to the fact that we worked for the whites, but in the afternoon we came back into our own little world, and we were responsible for our entertainment, our social skills. We were responsible for the care of the other community members. I grew up
basically a self-contained
exactly, absolutely. Except for an empowerment of money, it was an efficient society.
Do you remember your first grade teacher?
Yes, believe it or not, I do.
Tell me a little about Hudson School.
Yeah, okay. Hudson School was the school. At that time, Hudson was here. You had Lewis School in Mississippi Cove. You had Hudson in Collegeville. And you had Shields in the East Birmingham area. And it was first grade through 8th grade. Kindergarten must have been a new concept. I don't remember kindergarten. But in the first grade, they began to teach you self-respect. They taught you how to care for yourself. They taught you want to be somebody. They instilled the principles of working hard, being honest. You want to be somebody. Mrs. Foster was my first grade teacher, and a very strong disciplinary. There was a lot of honor because of position. The teacher walked in, you stood up. She said something, you said yes, ma'am. They had the power to whip or paddle and nothing. And as an old former administrator, I can remember if I did something wrong in school, they would send a note home. And when they sent that note home, whatever happened in school would get reinforced at home. I mean, reinforced at home. And it was a caring, mothering type thing. I did not realize until I got possibly Mrs. Franklin and third grade and some other teachers that all of our materials were basically hand-me-down materials. The system simply worked. The white schools got their new textbooks and new resources, and then after they marked them and wrote "I love you" and all the other things they would write them, that they would box them up and then send them to the black school. And so you never got a pretty new clean book. You never, everything was always hand-me-down. And to me, that basically, that instilled the second-class syndrome, that blacks were second class, blacks were not equal, blacks were inferior, and therefore because of, then everything was given down to you secondhand. But it was Hudson School was a center of social and cultural events within the community, and it was a place where a lot of hope and a lot of nurturing and a lot of teachers were hand-on. It was not unusual for them to put you in their car and drive you home, call you back in and say, you didn't get that right now. You're going to stay with me this evening. You're going to do that right. And then I had the unfortunate of going to the same elementary school as my dad. And everybody knew my dad and my grandmother and my grandfather. And
you were a model.
Yes, I was basically, I had to do right because of the status of my family.
Yeah. Now you went to Hudson School through 8th grade.
Right.
And from 8th grade, where did you grow up?
I transferred to Parker, H. Parker. And H. Parker was, 8, 9, 10 miles away.
How did you get there?
Well, several ways. Walked, bicycle, and they had buses, transit buses that they call specials. And you had to buy a little paper ticket, and you get so many tickets per. But being smart, I take my ticket money and not spend it on the bus and ride my bicycle, walk, and able to.
That's quite a distance. Though.
Yeah, but when you have 5 or 6 buddies, and at that time there was no such thing as games. So when you saw 5 or 6 black boys riding bicycles, it was just camaraderie. It was not. So we would meet at the park, and then take off and ride through Cyclico, and then come over through Fountain Heights and come down and go to Parker High School.
Are you suggesting that there were no gangs during that time?
There were groups, but gangs not on the same intensity as now. You had, at Parker High School, it was a mixture of every community except the South Side. You had people coming from Woodlawn, you had people from East Birmingham, North Birmingham, Collegeville, and Pacifico. And there was always, quote, one bad brother, which is another word, in every community. So if someone bothered me, I could depend upon the guys from Collegeville, and sometimes the guys from North Birmingham, and sometimes the guys from Pacifico to help defend what was the Woodlawn group would do. There were more outlaws coming out of Woodlawn. And the kind of gang thing problems we were having then, you had 1 or 2, they would steal your shoes from you. No weapons other than knives. You pull a knife from you and try to intimidate you, and then you would go tell your friends that, hey, that guy over there did that, and they'll walk with you. But the violence that permeates the society now is not on that level. But that was always one of the people.
Right. Parker is world-renowned.
Absolutely.
Were you active in any extracurricular activities at Parker?
Yeah, Parker, they did invisible tracking. That's a good word. They did invisible tracking. Tracking of students.
What do you mean by invisible tracking?
They took you based on test scores and academics, and they prepped you for college. They didn't say you were, we didn't have such thing in AP, advanced placement classes, but if you were in A, B, or C at Parker, you were in the top group of, the A, B, and C groups were the honor groups, and college preparatory courses were taken. Then if you were in D, E, and F and on down, you were going vocational, or they would send you to auto mechanics and things of this nature. Parker was very large, school, very, very large. R.C. Johnson was there, and he looked almost like a white guy, but he was profoundly respected. And so those people who would track honors, we took algebra, we took geometry, and we took physics, and we took biology, and we took chemistry, we took English, advanced English, in a preparation to for college days. I was involved in the honors group, and I was involved in the safety patrol. That wasn't a safety patrol. So we didn't have traffic lights. I wish I could find that. This brings back a lot of memories. In the center of 8th Avenue North, I used to stand with a whistle and a little gray badge saying Captain Safety Patrol, and had a little pole with on the top of it had a little box, and it had stop on this end, stop on this end, and go on this end. And I would control the traffic down 8th Avenue in the morning time with my group. Blow the whistle, and I made a long blow, and the guy with the pole would turn it, and I'd throw my hand out and stop the traffic till the kids would come across. And
I did the same thing.
That's amazing. I hadn't thought about that in a year.
That gave us a certain amount of power.
We were powerful. Yeah, they had a direct line to the principal's office and direct line to the advisor's office. And a lot of times I would go in the bathroom, the guys would be smoking, they put it out. It was a sense of authority there. I had a lot of good lessons. Mr. Hayes was my physics teacher, and I ended up being a biology major. I always had science project and won science awards. And my senior year, I fell in love and dealt with Mr. Hayes. He said, well, James, you gonna have a science project this year? No. What? So I had always had A's in physics. He said, well, your science project don't count for part of your grade. I said, you can't do that. Gave me a C. I was so upset with Mr. Hayes, but he taught me that even when you accomplish something, there are certain responsibilities that you need to do because people expect those things. Right. I finished Parker in 1960 at 15 years old, and got a piece of scholarship at Tuskegee Institute. I think it's $300 or something else, which might have been a lot, but $300. And my dad said, can't go to Tuskegee, we don't have the money. And I said, Dad, he said, you're going to college. And a friend of mine who's still around, Julius Clark, was at Alabama A&M University. And Julius took me to college. My dad did not go with me. My mom did not go with me. They entrusted whatever Julius did for me. Julius was like a junior at A&M at the time. And he came down the street, loaded me up, and off to A&M I went at 16. And
what was that experience like? The transition from high school to college.
I was so much younger than everyone else. Until I had to know how to survive because of age difference. The girls were older, the guys were older. And I have a daughter that they tried to do the same thing to, and I just refused to let them move her that fast. It did not make. But it gave me a sense. I knew that my father could not afford to send me to school. It was his dream and his desire that I become educated. So I made friends quickly up there. He was elected officer in the freshman class, and then sophomore class, president. I was either president or vice president freshman class to get the book, but always from then on I was president through all the other classes. I led several demonstrations on certain rules that I thought were not appropriate.
On campus?
On campus. I led.
What were some of those you remember?
Well, yeah, one of them, we were kidding about it. A&M was not an accredited college at the time, and Southern Association was coming to do the on-site visitation. And I had organized a demonstration there would be no students in class. There was going to be no students in class.
What year is this?
62, 63.
Your what, sophomore?
Yes, sophomore, probably sophomore year. Probably my sophomore year. They had rules like after 9 o'clock, the girls had to be locked in the dormitory. And they would actually change the doors. The doors were actually locked. The camp was elongated type campus, and the guys on this end, the girls on this side. And halfway at the library, if you had a date from the library that closed at 9, you had to say goodbye and let her walk the other 2 or 3 blocks by herself. I thought that was not right. We had some professors that were not teaching on the level I thought that they should teach. And so as a rebellion act, we were not going to allow the Southern Association to give Alabama A&M its accreditation. Foolishly enough, I didn't realize the impact that this would have done. We had teachers who had worked years to get the number of books and degrees and plays and all of that. And I was just looking at the narrow focus of the student body. I had several conferences with dean and men, and they were just setting their own way. There were no cars on campus. I had one of the 3 cars that were allowed to be on campus. A friend of mine, Richard Williams, who's now in Stillman College, and Nathan Esser, who's now a doctor at University of Memphis or Memphis State, I think they changed the name. We had the only 3 cars on campus. And if the girls wanted to go off, they had to check off to go through us. So I did have some power there. But
how were you allowed to have a car?
Well, I had to get it cleared through the president, through the dean, the vice president, show you had insurance, and then be credible based on your reputation that you could take these girls off campus and bring them back. Because most of us couldn't afford cars. I worked, and my daddy helped me put a car together. But I was determined that A&M was going to give us more responsibility as young adults. And I didn't like the way they were treating us. And so we organized, and everybody was going to wear white and black and not go in class. You lived on campus, so you would go eat, but you have white and black on, and but not a team class. So if the end of the visit went into classes, there was going to be no more in there.
Why white and black?
Mourning. The whiteness and the black, that we were mourning based on that we were just dead bodies. We had no significance. We were numbers. So we were going to wear white or black and not go to class. And the president picked up on it, Dr. Morrison, and about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, the campus police came to my room and woke me up. And they were all down. They had got me in there. They were all down in the administration office, and asked me and another guy, Herman, to come and meet with them. And they said, so we're not angry with you. We know what you're doing, and let me explain what we've gone through to try to get you where you are. And you heard it yourself, because you're going to be one of the first groups to graduate from an accredited school, and you don't understand what's going on. So I had to make sure that nobody else would be hurt as far as expelling, and I had represented each dormitory. We had 3, but only 1 was the real one, because if they began to expel, they would have to guess who was the real leader. And he explained, okay, we'll call it off. We'll attend class, but I do it. But after this is over, we do need to meet. And we negotiated the truth, and then he had to call all the mothers in the dormitory. I used to call them house mothers, and let them know that I was coming in with the police. And then I had 1 key person, so I called 3 or 4 of them down and said, hey, it's off, everybody take class. We worked out a compromise. So 3 o'clock in the morning, we doing this, and I hit the dormitory in the meeting, and sure enough, I would say most of them attended classes, but there was a lot of white and black. There was so much white and black. People were wearing them because they had already got together on it. Right. And after that, we did come up with some compromise, some safety things were done. They opened up some, and it was a good experience. at
Had you had any experience with the movement prior to going to
Yeah.
high school? What were some of your
Well,
I know you lived in college.
yeah, I lived in college. Yeah, I lived in Collegeville directly across from Bethel Baptist Church, and so you would leave my house, and in 10 seconds you'd be at the church. And Mr. Ravis lived here in Reverend Shuttlesworth. Well, at first he lived next to the church before the bombing. And so I was always involved. My dad used to write plays about the struggle of the black man, and we would have plays at church as entertainment. So it was just there. And then Reverend Shuttlesworth was my minister, and the NAACP was strong until they outlawed it. And so I was there.
Do you remember when the NAACP was actually outlawed?
Yeah. See, amazingly, Horace, my going to high school was in '56, and in '56, I go backwards in '56. In '56 December, Christmas night, that's when I experienced my first bombing, and then
and that was the bombing of
Bethel Baptist. Right. 16th Street gets the notarized church as a church of the civil rights movement, but really it was not. The 16th Street was thrust into national prominence when the girls were bombed and were killed. But the grass root of the civil rights struggle was not at 16th Street. It was at Bethel Baptist Church in Collegeville. And in reality, and this is not negative on 16th Street, 16th Street was the bourgeoisie blacks, in quotation. They were the educators and the doctors, and they had arrived, and our finite thinking, they didn't want no parts. They were comfortable. Now you had some that were there, but it was the poor people who wanted something better and didn't have anything to lose, you know. And I would say Reverend Shuttlesworth was the pastor of 16th Street. I don't know if he would have gotten the same following as he did in Collegeville, where there was only hope that we could do better than what we were doing. So in December '56, I had just gone to high school, and they bombed the church in December '56.
Do you actually remember the bombing?
Oh yeah.
What was that like? What was your...
There are certain things in your life that you never forget. Some of them are like marriages and death and commencement, things like that. But in '56, I was a teenager, and when my house was built, I lived in the back section of it, and my mom and dad lived on the other side. Not a big house, but just and so when I'm less than 100 yards from the church. So when the impact hit, it felt as if the earth had just erupted. I mean, you could feel the thrust of it and the smell of it.
It was near like the bomb was actually at your house.
Yeah, exactly. It was, and it was so powerful. And see, you can think of a shotgun shell and how loud it is, and multiply it maybe about 2,000. It was a powerful impact with thrust behind it. And when I realized when you looked out and you could see the electrical wires popping and you could smell the odor, those things you can't erase. You don't erase. And then my dad ran and checked on us, and when he did that, he said the church had been bombed. And my dad and Mr. Reddish were the first two people to go in to see about Reverend Shuttlesworth. Glass everywhere. My mom collected little ceramic pieces and the impact of the bomb had just knocked all that stuff. You could hear that glass and all that falling. The windows were out. The odor was there. Things were still falling in. And I just knew Reverend. And see, I was in love with Ricky, the second daughter of Reverend Shuttlesworth. So she was in the house, and Fred and Junior was in there, and everybody, the family was in the house. The house was not empty.
Was anyone injured?
No. And see, I introduced Reverend Shuttlesworth, I think last year at a meeting, and I introduced him as my first miracle. See, I've experienced in life a lot of things, but very few people experience a miracle. And Reverend and I talked about that after the program, and said he had never thought of it that way. But when that first bomb went off, the parsonage was right next to the Bethel Baptist Church. And that was like a walkway, a crawl space about 30 inches. You could walk between it. Now you couldn't build them that close. And that bomb was put between the walls of the church here and the house there. And Reverend Shuttlesworth's bed was in that same room. When that bomb, they said 16 sticks, 18 sticks, 20 sticks, all kind of estimate. The impact of that bomb wiped out the left side of the house, and the house caved in down. So that if you get some of the old pictures, you can see that this end is up and the whole side on next to the church was collapsed. And Reverend was in that side. When Daddy, Mr. Revis went in and checked on the Reverend, there was a rafter, a joist that had come from the ceiling that had gone through the bed. And show you how God worked, the impact of the bomb threw Reverend out of the bed. When they threw him out of bed, that wood went through there. He got up, put on his little preacher coat, little black coat that he had, and came out on the porch. And by that time, everybody was, so the community was there from there. Guns, shotguns, everybody was there. Because we had been involved in a lot of things, trying to desegregate the train stations and the buses and all that. And Reverend came on the porch, on the good side of the porch, without a scratch, without a scar, without a drop of blood, without no loss of sight, no loss of hearing, and preached goodwill and love, and gave direction. We had Mr. Punibell had his gun and was not ashamed to show his gun, waiting on the police to come, because we figured the police had something to do with it. And he said, take Punibell home. He's not ready for this. Y'all take him home. We don't want any, when they get here, we don't want any violence, no confrontation at all.
What was this person's name?
Bell. His nickname was Punibell.
Punibell.
I think his first name was James Bell. I know his nephew still lives in Birmingham. But there was some angry black people because they had bombed this and tried to kill Reverend. And Reverend had that dynamite to go off within 4 feet of his head and did not lose hearing, sight, or drop of blood. So to me, that gave me inner strength to believe that he was ordained and blessed to lead this movement. Because nobody could. You couldn't pay me $1 million to lie down on this floor and you put 18 sticks of dynamite on the other side of this wall and say, if you survive, I'm going to give you that man, and to me, that gave me inner strength to believe that he was chosen, and the Reverend never showed any fear. He's a little man. He's a little, he's not a gigantic guy. Very, but and sometimes I was crazy some things that he would do. But he was
like what?
He would confront, bull Connor, argue with.
You actually saw him?
Yeah, oh yeah. We see what most people don't realize. The police department in Birmingham was like, I go to some African countries and the market's not everywhere. But the military is sometimes more powerful than anything that you have. And Birmingham Police Department was like an armed military. They did what they wanted to do.
Especially in black
community. In black community. They had one car, car number 13 used to have a black cat. on the rear bumper. And they had one policeman, nickname was Kid Glove. He'll get out his car and put on his gloves and fight you. You know, yeah, things were a little different. And shooting a black was not a big thing. So Reverend would have a confrontation with the police department. He'd go down to the terminal station, which we destroyed, which has been beautiful. We can't get it back, but that was. He was always confrontational. And then the unique thing, the police was always at the mass meeting. Every Monday, for years, we had the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights. Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights, when they outlawed NAACP in 56, now, I don't remember the month, but I know it's in 56. June. It was June 56, okay. When they outlawed it in 56, Rev said, that's not going to stop us. He preached a sermon, not going to stop us. And then he organized the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights. So the white folks going to say, hey, if we outlaw that, they're going to call it something else. We're not going to stop it by outlawing. But it was something, Reverend had a vision. He was divinely appointed. Because, see, everybody knew things were not right. Everybody knew that we were second-class citizens. Everybody knew that whites looked down on us, but it took Reverend Shuttlesworth. Now, Martin Luther King gets the majority of the credit, but in reality, Fred Shuttlesworth started the movement and then called Dr. King in from Montgomery to assist. And King had profound audience, also than Fred, because Reverend Shuttlesworth would be hot-tempered. Sometimes he wasn't the coolest thing around, and he would say some things that you wouldn't want to, and then he would say, Lord forgive me, and go on with it. But he was a little different than King. Dr. King, when we used to travel back and forth the two churches, we'd get in Reverend Shuttlesworth's old Plymouth station wagon and ride down Dexter Street and have service, and the choir would sing, and then we'd go back and forth. So that was a camaraderie between us.
So you then actually attended services at Dexter?
Yeah, sang in the choir. We had a junior choir. Pat and Ricky and Calvin Stowe and John Burks, and a lot of us traveled with Reverend down there. So at that time, Dr. King did not have the same notoriety. We knew he was a beautiful speaker. And I used to do, still try to public speaking sometimes. But I've seen Dr. King sit up and do a profound delivery without a piece of paper. I mean, he's a God. Well, and he was just profound, and he had a way of expressing himself that would make you want to move, make you want to make a commitment. And every Monday night, we would have mass meetings at various churches. We would not, because within the mass, there were whites who were informers. The police department would come in with us. They would show you every mass meeting. There would be at least two white policemen sitting down, detectives sitting in the meeting, and then you'd have 4 or 5 cars outside. And then they had blacks that were informers within the movement also. And through Intelligence Underground, we knew someone who were working for the policemen to find out things that were going on.
How would you describe a mass meeting?
A mass meeting was like a pep rally. I'm just going to be, it was a pep rally with religious overtones with a sense of direction. We would meet at this church on the north side one Monday. The Reverend would announce the next mass meeting going to be at Thorogood. We go over there, and the next mass meeting going to be in East Birmingham. And then you end up, there were some ministers that did not want to partake of any of it. So that churches were never available for the mass meeting because this was a rational move to go against segregation and take a stand. Some of us became prisoners within our own mentality that this is the way it's supposed to be. And then there was others that had hope. So the mass meeting, we had good singing. Carlton Reese, who's still in Birmingham, was the organist, and Carlton would make that organ talk, and we'd have good upbeat singing, and then we'd have the announcements. And the Reverend would talk about where we're going, what we're going to do, and where we are in this lawsuit, where we are in the other lawsuit, and then we'd have a sermon. And then we'd go out fired up. That was every Monday. My dad had never missed a mass meeting until he had his first stroke. In '94, he had been to every one. of the mass meetings. Now it's still Reverend Gardner is in the leadership position. He's older now. I don't know if it's significant the movement is still the same, but it still goes on. But during those days, during those days, it was important that if you were in the fight and you were in the struggle, you attended the mass meeting too. And they were always packed. And then we had our own security. Police watching us, and we watching the police. And we had our own.
You were part of that security?
Oh yeah. Well, young people were. See, how being where we were, you had to be a part, and had the kind of parents I had to be a part. We had young guys, a lot of older guys. What's Colonel's name? He still working.
Colonel Stone.
Yeah. We were good. We spent many nights together talking, and Johnny Lewis and Mr. Stolz and Reuben Davis and Clifford Davis and all and guys my age, the teenagers. Then they had their own security system. We would watch and let them know what's going on, and we saw strange cars. We let them know. We'd take a tag number down. Things like this. I was a part of that, and I said on the Roberson's porch, we built a room with glass all the way around it, and you could see the south side of the church, the front of the church, and you could see the left side. So from that position, we had the front of the church covered, we had the sides of the church covered, and we sat with a little space heater. And drank coffee and shotguns over here, shotguns there. No pistols at that. We kept shotguns because I don't think it's unlawful to have a shotgun, but it's unlawful to have a pistol. And then we had 3 stations of security at the church itself. In the back of the new portion that was built after the 56 bombing, we had a house back there about 5 by 5 with windows all around it, and we had security there. And then when we really thought something was hot going on, we had somebody on the 3rd floor of the church looking out, covering the back end. And these were volunteers. There was no money exchange. It was just a commitment to protect the property, protect the railroad. And then we were young, and they used us in bus segregation. We would ride the buses and sit up front. They used to have, and I wish I could find one of those green boards. I hope somebody took one.
Green boards with gray writing.
Right, gray writing. Yeah, absolutely. Color do not sit in front of this board. Whites do not sit behind this board. And the white driver had the power to move that green board wherever you want it. Now, I've done some sensitivity and race relation workshops with Over Mountain School, and that's one of my experiments. I take the kids, and I don't use black and white, but I have little red buttons and green buttons and yellow buttons. And maybe the yellow button is the button that's going to be segregated, just the opposite. And then we drive the bus, and then as they get on the bus, I let them all sit, and all of a sudden I put the board and make them all get it back. And at the end, I asked them how they feel. Hey, I paid the same money. You know, why did I have to go in the back? But we would ride the buses, and they used to have like a own little black car. I don't know who security is now. But if there was any problems on the bus, then they would call this particular security guy. He would come and threaten a arrest you or whatever.
Were you ever arrested?
No, never arrested. When we're doing the bus, we just ride the bus and sit up front. At first it was, and I tell people, it was fear, because psychologically, I was going against what I've always been taught, that colored people had their place. And the first time I defied the segregation of the bus, there was fear that only way I can describe it is, if I had a brown bag and had something in it alive and told you it was a rattlesnake and sitting on your lap and you didn't know if it was going to strike or what was in it. That's the kind of fear that gripped me when I first violated the rules and sat up front. Now, that fear was self-induced because of my bringing up, but then that was there. And then the whites had the power to kill, to shoot, to maim, and it would be white.
What their response?
It would be, absolutely, it would be. And so we rode along, we would ride the buses, and then when the guy get off the call, the security people, we'd get off the bus and walk, catch another bus and do the same thing, come back and report what we did.
Were you involved at all during the 63 demonstrations?
No, I was in school. I was 60 through 64, I was at A&M. I led the demonstrations in Huntsville, Alabama. A guy named Hank knocked on my door at A&M and asked me was I in the movement. And he had been given my name, Julia Rain. It's like a mom to me, a very close relationship with a close office at A&M in Huntsville. He came in and asked me, yeah. He said, well, we're going to do some things in Huntsville, Alabama. And you want to be a part? I said, yeah. And I said, I get plenty of folks. There's no problem with the folks. I said, a lot of folks in Birmingham up here, we fought here. So I was involved in the first desegregation of eating facilities in Huntsville, Alabama. And we met at Reverend Snodgrass Church, black church in downtown Huntsville, and made our strategy. We got in our cars, well dressed. Most of the folks were from Birmingham. And we went to Shoney's Big Boy on Memorial Parkway and asked to be served. Walked in, we were dressed appropriate, clean, and when we walked in, I see, you're old enough to realize the mindset, but young people are not. We were walking in like we were walking to a white person's private home and asking, I want to eat. But we were actually in a public restaurant. There were no blacks anywhere. We walked in, and as a while everybody would continue to eat, and they realized we were there. Got really quiet. And we wanted to be seated. And the manager said he was from New York and he understood, but he could not see us. And we said, well, why can't we be served? We have money, we're not dressed, we're dressed properly. Somebody in the restaurant said, you get the fellas and I get the tall, we get these niggas out of here. And we turned around and stared, and it got real quiet. I said, y'all gonna have to leave, I'm gonna have to call the police. Well, do what you have to do, we just want to leave. And he called the police, and we knew our proper how many minutes we could stay out till he called the police, but we were not trying to get arrested, we were just, and we left there.
So you left prior to the police?
Oh yeah, no, we didn't want to arrest. We wanted to make the news and get the police on spin. And we left there and went to White Castle, which was another restaurant downtown, did the same thing, and then we came back and strategized. And we pulled people off of the campus and started to sit in at the 5 and 10, 5 gang, what that store used to be called. But Huntsville was easy because Huntsville was a military town. It was a space and rocket center. We had a lot of foreigners there. Huntsville was a very small town in the early 60s, less than maybe 15,000 people, and it just grew overnight. And so there was no segregation in housing because the military and the government were, they didn't have a bus system working and things, so there was no segregation on buses. The only thing that was basically segregated was the eating facility. But when we started, we pulled kids off the campus and started sitting in Huntsville, the military police were there. The MPs were there to protect us. You know, so you see MPs right there. Now, who sent them, we don't know, but they were there. And we had no major incidents in Huntsville, Alabama. So while my mom and dad and brother, sister were in Birmingham, I was in Huntsville, Alabama. My dad was telling me, be careful, watch yourself. You know, I know you're going to be involved, I know how you are, but be careful. don't get hurt. And then they were in Birmingham dealing with the city. And my sister got arrested, and she went to jail. My brother did not. My brother was, in quote, we laugh about it, my brother was my mom's favorite child. So she had me up in the hospital, involved up there, and my sister was in Birmingham, but she kept my brother at home.
He was like,
No, he was a middle child.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Lawrence didn't participate in anything. He was a bookworm and smart guy, but he did not participate. We laugh about it now. But my sister defied my mom, and when the kids left school and came down, she was there. And my dad supported her. My mom did too. But after experiencing the bombings, sometimes it becomes a known thing that you don't want anybody to hurt. And we had 2 bombings, or maybe 3. I think 3, because the last bomb was probably, I was in school, must have been 62 and 63 was the last one from church. And my mom had experienced those. And she was not happy about the situation. So she didn't want either one of us to get hurt. But my sister defied my mom, and she was like my dad. She took off and she got arrested and stayed in. I think it took them to fairgrounds and locked them up there. But my brother did not, because my mom wanted at least say, hey, I got 2 nuts out there. I will save one of them in case something.
Well, Mr. Roberson, you really share with us a rather unique perspective on the movement because of the proximity. You're so close to everything that was happening. And I certainly appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. Is there anything that we have not covered that you would like to leave with us at this time?
Well, gratitude for this project. And I think Civil Rights Institution is doing a mammoth task. If you can get people who were involved just to relax, talk about it, I think that's important, because somehow or another we're missing the conference of information from actual where we were to where we are now. And I think we're losing the value system of the struggle. The black race, our nomenclature has changed. We were colored, we were Negroes, now we black. I don't know, now Afro-American. Yeah. We've gone through full terminology changes, but our young generation, and as a father, I've taken my kids and walked them down 4th Avenue and showed them the Carver Theater, and then took them to the Lyric to make them aware that things have not always been the same. And because of the struggle with the desegregation and integration of schools, it has instilled into me a pioneering attitude. I became the first black in the city with Pontiac motor vehicles, and not because white folks wanted me in the business. I went around and left letters and resumes, and finally got on, and now it's not an uncommon thing to walk in and see blacks in key positions. My wife wanted to live on the side of a mountain, and I felt like after overcoming the fear of the snake, I could live anywhere I want to live. And I feel chosen and blessed to have lived at 2921 33rd Street North, because that was the nucleus of where things got started, and very few people can experience that. And my father's leadership, he was the only living witness to Jail J.B. Stoner on the bombing of the church.
He was a witness
in the trial.
Okay.
Mr. Roberson had passed, my dad. I think they could convict J.B. Stoner on the bombing of the church because there were people in the church. And my dad was one of the people that Mr. Roberson was in the 58 bombing. And then they took Mr. Roberson, my dad had testified that he was in J.B. Stone was convicted of that bombing.
Did you have the opportunity to attend any of that?
I did not attend. I can't recall attending, so I'm gonna say I did not attend. But I was grown when the trial took place because I did how it was because the Birmingham Post-Era, some reporter doing an investigation picked up on the fact that I was building a house in an all-white over the mountain community, and my dad was testifying in the J.B. Stone trial. So it must have been 72 or 73. So I was full at that at the time, and then they came over and followed me around for a week, looking for racial incidents and hostility. And then the newspaper came out one morning, black family moves over the mountain, builds $100,000 house. And they have full page, front story and all that based on that fact. I'm hoping that you continue to investigate and pull other people to tell the story, because unless we convey to our young people the struggle that we've done to get where we are now, they're not going to value at all the history. Somehow or another, we're going to have to, different race of people always value their history, and they live and they grow from the history. Our kids seem not to want to know the history. They don't want to be a part of the struggle. They just say, hey, that was in the old days. But if we don't immediately make some changes, we're going to find ourselves drifting back. And we slowly drift. Every time I go down the interstate and I see 9 black young guys out there picking up paper and 1 white guy, it drifts back that we're going back. I remember when a good boy used to be more white folks out there than black folks. Until somehow or another we're missing something that young people are not proud of our history. And I hope this institution, this program, will make them aware that they have a responsibility to take the torch farther than what we are.
I certainly appreciate you taking the time, but before we end, I know now you are in the automobile industry.
Yeah.
But prior to getting in the automobile industry, you were in education.
Yeah.
Can you tell me just a bit about that career and where did you end that career?
Okay, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. I'm a long-range planner, and in long-range planning, you have a measuring stick. Years ago, 3 of us, 3 blacks, 3 of my friends got together, and we said by the age 55, we want to accumulate $1 million and be independently wealthy. One friend took beauty aid products and hair products. One friend took real estate, and I took automobile. Since I had been with them all the time, I worked with GM for a while, and Blaine Brownell, a very nice man, happened to be white, wanted me to take over a dealership. And we flew to Atlanta. I was in a white graduate school. I was living in a white community. I was #1 salesman in the area. And we flew over to Atlanta to the regional office. And the guy didn't know I was black. We walked in, and you could see the reaction. This is the guy that Blaine is going to recommend for a dealership. And on the way back, Blaine said, James, you know what? I don't think they knew you were black. He said, I said, did you see? He said, yeah. And immediately they got a white guy out of Louisiana, Bill Farley, and sent him in. I trained Bill Farley. Bill Farley had a totally different philosophy. So, again, make a long story short, I had made a commitment to my wife that if I did not have a dealership by the time Blaine Brownell left, because I knew he was leaving, I would come full-time in the education. And so when I did not get the appointment of the dealership with GM, I left, went back to graduate school, got a master's in air leadership administration, and Jefferson County appointed me as a principal of a white school. Jefferson County is predominantly white school system. They had about 6 or 7 schools, and they had 4 black principals. 2 of them were principals of black schools, Brighton High and another, and Liberty High, I believe was black. And then I was principal at Leeds. And then you had another young man at Bartonfield that was principal. I worked, people will respect you regardless of race if you can perform, do the job, demand excellent. I was there. I had about 30-something teachers, about 40-something on staff. Had a good school. Brother called and said he worked for Ford. He was he was in the first group of MBAs in the United States. My brother went to Harvard and to Indiana U, and that's when there were no black MBAs, and graduated. And at that time they wanted to showcase blacks, so he had offers from Coca-Cola, GM, Ford, AT&T, IBM, and he went with Ford. Got a lot of recognition on some things he done with Ford. He said, bro, they got a nice minority dealer program with Ford Motor Company. And I said, I can't take the class, but if you qualify, you can take it. So I went through an interviewing process with Ford Motor Company. There were hundreds of people trying to get those 15 slots. I took a week assessment in Orlando, Florida. No big deal. A lot of guys were Ford employees. And so they sent me a letter and said, congratulations, you have been selected to be in the Ford Minority Development Program. Then I had to make a choice. Do I leave my kingdom where I'm the king and everybody's doing what I tell them to do and I have no problem? Or do I leave it and make an opportunity to open a pathway for other minorities and black and become a millionaire at the same time? I had some self-motivating. So I prayed about it, talked to my wife, and I retired and resigned from Jefferson County and went full-time with Ford. Graduated from the academy in '92 and have been offered 4 dealerships. First one was Mouse Cow. I don't rush about Idaho. Guy called me, Mr. Roberson, we have a dealership, it's college town, blah, blah, blah. Where? Moscow. Russia? Never heard of it. Idaho, Washington State, and all that. So I declined that one, and then the one in Dodge City, Iowa, I declined. The one in Stokes, Florida, I declined. And the one in Bastrop, Louisiana, someone got it before I got a chance to look at. Right now I'm managing at a Ford store in Alabaster. We don't have too many black managers, period. But they made a commitment to me that I would be in Birmingham or 50 miles from Birmingham. Too many times blacks accept dealerships that are borderline and they're in predominantly white rural areas, and there's a cultural difference. And how can me, a southern black from Alabama who like collard greens and cornbread go to Idaho and survive, and I don't like potatoes. So I've cared enough about my family not to move them around. I have social and political connections. I've served on boards in the city of Homewood. I have a good reputation. I have a lot of white friends, a lot of black friends. Why would I leave where it's taken years to build, to go and try to make money where a white guy who was before me didn't make any money? So I told Ford I was not going to practice losing money. If they offered me something that I thought was beneficial to my family, I would take it. And if they wanted a minority to be a success, put me in Birmingham, Alabama. And those are my standards, and I'm not willing to waver right now. Now, maybe after my daughter get out of high school, I might be willing to waver and do something else. So right now, I'm a dealer candidate with Ford Motor Company, managing down at Ernest McCarty Ford, hoping that I can be the first again, a first to get a dealership in this area in Birmingham, Alabama. And so I believe that it's possible, but I do realize that the white power structure can and will dictate And I told them this at a meeting at the hotel. For the first time in my life, not my works, not how excellent I perform, will dictate my future. It has nothing to do with output or skill. It has to do with who you know and what they're willing to do for you. And that's reality. And until we realize that's reality. And see, in my position as administrator, I was sensitive to blacks because I am black. And honestly, sometimes if I had 3 teachers applying for a position, and 1 white was qualified and 1 black was qualified, I was sensitive more to the black because I knew that white guy down the street was not going to be sensitive to the black. And so in turn, I hired more black people than anybody. Now, you call that reverse discrimination or whatever you want to call it. I call it being sensitive to the needs of the minority. Unless they have an aid in being expressed, they never will express themselves. So I'm hoping Full will do. I've been blessed. They don't. Life still goes on. I still live on. But I've been blessed to be comfortable. And I'm hoping that I can leave something for your son, my son, and the house of more black people. If the white power structures to me will be sensitive to my needs. I never thought it would be that way because, hey, I worried that I did all of this. But coming from academia, you know, if you do this, you're at the top, you're in the upper 2%, they got to get you. It has nothing to do with it. Nothing at all. It's that vice president that knows you, pick up a phone and call and say, put it to work. He goes to work. And that's it. So right now, I'm at a good dealership. It's a family-owned business. The guy grew up in the West End. Daddy was a coal miner. He has more money than he knows what to do with it. He has 2 sons. They've been blessed because of their dad to be in a good position. There's no push to beat people up or take money. And there's a sense of trust. Anytime a man bring in his business and show you his bottom line, show you what he's making and how he's doing it, there's a lot of trust. So I'm comfortable. I can stay there from now on, but there's a burning desire to get my own, to be my own. Right. And if I get my own and it's a success, in 10 years I'll be worth $2 to $3 to $4 million. And that's the ultimate goal, being able to be powerful enough to dictate your future based on your income. Right. And one of my friends out of the 3 became a millionaire through beauty aid products and doing extremely well. The other one in real estate is struggling like I am. I'm doing better than he is, but we long range plan. Right. We sat down and thought.
You also served on the council.
I served on the park board system for the city of Homewood for 10 years. And this year I was honored with the city of Homewood, the recognition of my team that served. No one has ever served that long. I served every position except president. Didn't want president. For some reason, political reason, I didn't have a woman. But I was chairman of the finance committee, which is more powerful than the seat. Was there for 10 years. We did several $1 million of renovation, hired a new superintendent. I was involved in the legal ramification and pulled the power of the park system from under the mayor and put it back where it should be. Mayor Walter was there. We hired a new superintendent. I've been involved in a lot of litigation. But Homewood is proud of its parks and people. I've been asked to do other things, but right now, to be honest with you, I'm working on the dealership, and things at my church, and hoping to go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Roberson.
It's been good.
It's been great.
Thank you so much.
All right.